traditionally we're sort of conditioned for boys to maybe not care. Oh, it's not important. It doesn't matter. Don't care. But you know what? They do care. And we can't minimize the impact on mental health, depression, anxiety that acne has. It's been demonstrated in multiple studies that you're more likely to have anxiety and depression if you have, any inflammatory skin disease. Acne is
Right.
one of them. So how do we make it more acceptable and cool. Change the conversation. Give the boys the tools they need, but make it easy, fun, and cool.
As a parent of a teenager who always stinks, definitely interested to talk to you about what to do.
Awesome. I'm so glad that you
I
guys.
shouldn't say that. I mean, look, he's 15. I mean, he runs track. He's very athletic. But when you get a couple of him and his kids from his track team in the car, it's like disaster. So, um,
Awesome. I'm so glad that this like serendipitously worked out that you have teen boys. We've got a lot to talk about.
and actually, that Clinton over here actually has really bad skin, so maybe we could help him.
Actually, you know what? I get a lot of compliments about my skin for some reason. That's the
You,
only
you,
thing I
your
like. I
skin
get
looks
skin.
wonderful.
Actually, you have to tell me because I mean, when I don't sleep well, I get like circles on my eyes, and I've tried cucumbers, I've tried everything known to man, every product. I have no problem eating it, and like it just makes you look tired, right? Like as you get older. So,
You know what? I think we're just going to small talk the whole episode. How about that?
I love it.
No, we have a special guest, Dr. Sheilagh Maguiness. Did I get it right?
You did. Thank
All
you.
right. She is a double board certified dermatologist and pediatric dermatologist and president of the Society for Pediatric Dermatology. And she's also the co-founder of a cool product line, Stryke Club, a personal care brand made just for boys. Now, where was that when I needed? I had like the pimple right on the tip of the
uh,
nose on my prom, junior prom.
I
So
use the clear sol wipes, those pads, you know. That's all we had back in the 80s and 90s, I think. So, kids today don't realize how lucky they are, I think. So, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. McGinnis, all the way from Minnesota. So, thank you
by
for.
way of Canada, don't forget Canada.
Oh, by way of Canada. Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. So, why don't you tell us a little about your background? Share us your story, how you got into medicine, and then kind of how you continued your journey with doing something a little entrepreneurial, so to speak.
Thank you. So, yeah, I'm a board certified pediatric dermatologist. And I think that many people, including colleagues, sometimes don't even know that pediatric dermatology exists as a subspecialty, and it's a board certified subspecialty of dermatology.
Mm.
I trained in Canada, and going through medical training in Canada, there was really no pathway to board certification for pediatric dermatology. And so I always knew I wanted to work with kids and always knew that I was really interested in a very specific area of academic medicine, vascular anomalies. So children born with vascular birthmarks,
Yeah.
infantile hemangiomas, that area always really intrigued me. And I kind of set out to find some mentorship and extra training. And that's really when I learned of pediatric dermatology as a subspecialty and found a mentor in San Francisco at UCSF. And I did my fellowship training there.
Mm.
And so then my husband and I at the time went on to train further in Boston at Boston Children's Hospital. I was there for 4 years. And then we kind of made our way to Minneapolis. This is where my partner's family is from. So I think that's pretty common for Minnesotans. They often leave and come back with a spouse.
I'll come back to this. And by the way, the way you said out, that's how we realize you're from Canada, I think.
Yes.
I didn't pick it
Okay.
up.
We gave it away.
Yeah.
And just, I mean, so any of our listeners out there, within pediatrics, it's always general pediatrics first and then subspecialized, right? It's not like you went into general derm or adult derm and then went into pediatric dermatology, right? You did general dermatology first, and then how many years of fellowship does that require to get board certified?
So pediatric dermatology requires 1 extra year of training after your board certification in dermatology. So
Oh, I see.
yeah.
So that was my question. So
So
you,
we're general dermatology, and then you can
uh,
subspecialize. And within derm, there are different subspecialties. So my partner is a dermatopathologist, and then we
I
have
see.
Mohs surgery and different cosmetic fellowships, but you can do pediatric dermatology and get
Oh,
extra.
but you do dermatology first because I know I have
You
friends of mine
derm
that were like
first.
close friends of
Yeah.
mine from med school, like for instance, a pediatric allergist and immunologist, but she did general peds first and then did a AI fellowship afterwards. So I wasn't sure, as opposed, let's say, doing medicine, AI, and then so I see. So
I
Mhm.
that's
have a dumb question. What distinguishes a like what
yeah.
diseases do you pediatric dermatologist would treat as opposed to a general dermatologist? Like what's your bread and butter, I guess?
So any inflammatory skin disease that you see in adults, like eczema, psoriasis,
Mhm.
lupus, all of those things, when they show up in children, they can look a lot different. And so the extra training in pediatric dermatology is really focused on, number one, how do these, more common skin diseases show up and look a lot different in the pediatric population? And then, of course, how to, keep children comfortable in a procedure that has a lot of, in a specialty that has a
Has a
lot of
lot of procedures. Yeah.
procedures. Yeah. So we get a lot of training on how to, do surgical procedures. I myself, where my interest is vascular anomalies,
Mhm.
I do a lot of laser procedures, both awake and sedated on children and babies. So there's that whole extra set of, knowledge base that you really do need to have that kind of expertise in how skin disease shows up in children.
Oh, that's fascinating. And I had taken my son once or twice, and this is my wife, to a pediatric dermatologist, just for acne, which,
Why did you throw your wife under the bus? So,
huh?
so and that hey, let's talk about that. That's like I
No,
guess guys or the old school mentality was like, it's a skin issue. Just let them get over it. You'll outgrow it type of thing. So I think that's
no, but
changed
well,
now,
I will
right?
tell you, obviously, the demand is dramatic because I went to make the appointment. It was like a 5 month waiting list. And this is the Northeast, right? Outside New York City, where you would
Mhm.
expect to have plenty of subspecialty care. So it just points to, I think, the demand. And I will tell you what I love about Durham, but I always complain is like, man, these guys are so smart, but they don't come to the hospital. We're at a community academic hospital, and I oftentimes in our department, infectious disease becomes the de facto dermatologist because we can't get an ID doc or a dermatologist to come into the hospital. So maybe you'll have to give me some more training because sometimes we'll get called, this patient has a rash, unless it's like a beta-lactam antibiotic rash, something very obvious. I'm like, what do you want me to do with this? So
I know.
uh,
It's
I think,
true.
yeah, there's definitely a need for more dermatologists to come into the hospital, but I get it. You guys are so busy in the outpatient setting that it's probably not worth your time or just not really realistic to take a break, right, from all the patients to come in.
Well, let me just address the first thing that you said
Yeah.
about pediatric dermatology and the long wait that even you experienced as a physician yourself, not being able to get in. We are a really small subspecialty.
Mhm.
And part of the great thing about me, being invited to do these speaking engagements and podcasts is to really gain visibility for the subspecialty. And maybe if
Sure.
there are medical students that are listening, they might be, intrigued about learning more about pediatric dermatology and maybe even considering it for a career because we have a lot of fellowships available, but very few people end up in the subspecialty. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. And then the second thing that you mentioned about, in inpatient dermatology, complex medical dermatology. So myself and most pediatric dermatologists practice at academic centers. And so we are in the hospital. We are available for
Sure.
inpatient consults. And there are many different academic centers that do have a strong inpatient medical dermatology program.
It's a
But a lot
community
of times
setting,
it's
right?
like the big academic centers and not the community hospitals. So yes, you're right. I think that that's a really underserved area, and there's such a need for more board certified dermatologists to have a presence there.
So you think some of that is economically based in terms of like, someone's a cardiologist, adult cardiology versus pediatric cardiology, or vice versa, or others for pulmonology, et cetera. Because I know in our area, we're one of the most heavily concentrated population dense areas in the United States, and still, if you the amount of pediatric derms or pediatric pulmonologist or any pediatric subspecialty is still very small. Usually one group with months and months of waiting lists. So I can't imagine how it's like in the rest of the country, outside academic areas.
Yeah, you're bringing up such a great point, and that is there's such a need, and there's a need for advocacy at like all levels of government to improve um, the training and probably that goes to reimbursement as
Sure.
well to pediatric subspecialists because I think it's a really hard sell. We're trying to figure out in our workforce, how do we convince these amazing young doctors to do more training and make less money than their peers?
Right.
That
Well,
is
you
a
hit the
really
head.
tough ask.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you hit the nail on the head. I mean, you're talking to docs who we love. Well, I don't know why anyone would love kidneys, but I love ID. But
Getting
you're
to the
dealing
root
with
of why that
chronically
is
ill
really
patients,
important. And
and
part of it is
oftentimes
changing the
doing a
conversation about it.
fellowship and making less than someone could do as a hospice. 7 on, 7 off. And so certainly, I think you have to call out the elephant in the room, which is the economic factors. And we talk about all the time, med students coming out with these massive debts, right? So it would be really ridiculous for us to say you can't take in future reimbursement into the equation, and I think they often do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that we obviously the need is dramatic, and just like we talk about in the ID world, and I'm sure in nephrology they've had some issues post-COVID of filling. So I think
Mm-hmm.
we definitely advocacy, podcasts, whatever we can do to make it warm and fuzzy for
Yeah,
medicines to come in. Are you
totally.
Mayo, by the way? Where do you teach, or where?
I'm
Which?
at University of Minnesota.
Oh, right.
Mhm.
I think part of the issue is like there's not a stigma, but there's a perception of dermatologists as all cosmetic, right? So
I
I think of
know.
like
We have to work on
pimple
that.
popper MD, and like I
I
mean
It was
know.
that Seinfeld episode. I remember that. Yeah.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, oh, skin cancer, right, right.
Gosh, we have to work on that. And, showing up and, being here and, representing our specialty in a way that demonstrates how committed we are
Mm.
to our patients, to complicated problems. I mean, a lot of people ask me, well, what do you see in the hospital as a pediatric dermatologist? Like what kind of skin diseases do children get? Kind of like we opened with. And the truth is that children get very severe diseases. I mean, if your child has a very severe blistering disease like epidermolysis bullosa
Yeah.
or an autoimmune skin disease where their skin is desquamating in large sheets, like who are they calling at the hospital? Well, they're calling us.
Right.
They're calling me, the pediatric dermatologist. And so you're right. We need to drive away from this perception that derm is cosmetic. That's only a small amount of the dermatology residency training. We do have an important role to play in the house of medicine, and I just really would hate to see that get lost.
And another issue that I think we deal with in this area is that a lot of the dermatologists are so cosmetic based that you can't get a lot of them don't take insurance, or it's so hard to get an appointment just for non-cosmetic issues. So um, that's
Yeah,
a
it's,
hard
it's just
thing to
it's just the
change.
it's just the marketplace, right? And there's a massive demand um, uh, in the cosmetic world. Obviously in the academic world. So if we go to some across the river into New York City, you're going to see a lot more of the academic dermatologists. But the need in the outpatient setting, I had a patient the other day who I was convinced they had toxic epidermal necrolysis from macrolide. I've seen it a couple of times, and the best we could get was someone doing a consult via an I,
FaceTime.
yeah, doing FaceTime because they just couldn't get here, which is insanity. Uh, yeah, so we I guess we all have to figure out a way. But same thing with ID, same thing with Nephro. You're seeing a graying of the workforce, and hopefully we can keep the next generation going. But getting back to so you teach. Tell us a little bit about like what you do. I mean, you're obviously an academic center. Are you teaching
Mhm.
residents and interns and med
I
students?
am,
Yeah.
yeah. So we have a peds derm division. I have two partners. So we have three of us. So that's very lucky because
Mhm.
many different academic programs don't even have a pediatric dermatologist at their center. So we have three full-time pediatric dermatologists. We have a busy, busy outpatient practice. Then we do inpatient consults in the hospital. And I was telling Clenton, my area of expertise in terms of clinical and research interests is vascular anomalies.
Yeah.
So I run our multidisciplinary vascular anomalies clinic for children and even adults that have complex, large vascular birthmarks, like large lymphatic anomalies, venous malformations,
Sure.
AVMs that need multidisciplinary care, and that as rare diseases and the rare conditions, they often don't have a medical home. So most of the time it's, within an academic center and a multidisciplinary vascular anomaly center.
So you're working with like vascular surgeons as well. Who would be involved in a multidisciplinary team like that?
So we have our pediatric dermatologists. We
Yeah.
lean heavily on interventional radiology because
Oh,
a
okay,
lot of
sure.
these things
Sure.
can be embolized or
Yeah.
sclerosed. So there's a big role there. And excitingly, in the world of vascular anomalies, there's been an explosion of genetic information. So we know the genetic basis for some of these birthmarks now, like lymphatic malformations have PIK3CA mutations, and there are now PIK3CA inhibitors, so medical therapies that we can use for these children with really large cervicofacial LMs, and
Yes.
probably going to have a lot better outcomes and many more tools in our toolbox to use for them. So it's really an exciting time to be interested in vascular anomalies. Lots of movement forward, which is great.
It's awesome. I want to get into the teenage, the boy stuff. Like I was telling you before you got on because you were late, Dr. Saggar.
As always, yeah.
So we're talking about our teenage children, and my oldest has like a whole bathroom full of skincare products and stuff like that.
Does
And
he steal them from you, or where's he getting them from?
no, no, I listen. I had white toothpaste that I put on a pimple the night before.
Can we
That
get
was
can
it.
we address that? Does that really work? Because I used to use that too. And when I
No, it doesn't work.
no, oh,
That's a myth. We can bust that one right now. No,
Oh,
toothpaste is
geez,
not
okay.
good for acne. And in fact, because of the fluoride in it, it can sometimes even make acne worse or flare perioral dermatitis,
so
which is
no
kind of
toothpaste.
acne-like. So no, don't skip the toothpaste. There's other great evidence-based things we
All right,
can
so
do.
let me tell you my routine. So if the toothpaste didn't work, I would get like a safety pin, and I'd
Oh,
run it
please,
under
come on.
hot water. I
Stop
stick
it.
it in,
I'm not
and I would
liking the
pop the.
sounds of this.
No, I'm just telling you my
You're
routine.
doing your own
We're gonna
INDs.
talk about the evolution, how it's changed, but
Okay, good.
I
So
would
you're
use like a
talking
warm
back in the
compress type of.
80s and 90s. This is what you're doing.
I would not drink. My mom said don't drink soda, drink more water. I don't know if that's a myth.
It is not a myth. That's a good one, Clenton.
Really?
Because what we have found, a lot of people wonder about diet and acne, and there's not a lot of links between diet and acne, but there are a couple. And one is high
Mhm.
glycemic index
Yeah.
foods. Things that
Oh,
spike your insulin, high glycemic index foods can certainly worsen acne. Another is whey protein. So really, people who drink a lot of skim milk, that has been found to be, a flare thing for acne. So skim milk, whey powder, high glycemic index foods, those are all things that
What's the pathophysiology of whey protein? Is that a inflammatory response or allergic reaction?
I think it's actually, an insulin, it
And
spikes your
also, okay,
insulin
I
too.
see.
The
Specific for
glycemic
whey
index
protein.
probably. Mhm.
so knowing where I came from, how has skincare evolved, like for teenage boys or acne? Because we used to just like leave it alone. You'll outgrow it. It's hormonal. Leave it alone.
No, or
Now
we,
they're not leaving
we
it
had those
alone.
Stridex pads, and
Oh yeah,
there was
Those are
very
still around, by the way. The
yeah.
Stryke pads, the Clearasil, the Proactive from when like we had acne.
you
It's
used to
all
put it
still
on and
there.
then pull it
Well,
off, and then
actually,
have
the
all the
proactive, I think,
blackheads.
was even somewhat advanced. That was like the next level when you had just the Clearax pads, or what's the Stridex, and then there was something else. But then I think the proactive was kind of, they had their whole program for a while, and that was a
Mhm.
thing. But it's what is driving the advances? I mean, and I know that we're going to end up ultimately leading to your to the Strike Club, but is it just more knowledge of what causes, and then subsequently what can be utilized to stop acne, or what is it based on?
Well, believe it or not, guys, there's been very little innovation in the acne space, over the last 20 years. Like the same over-the-counter things are still the main, the main ingredients that are used. So the active ingredients that you can get for acne over the counter are salicylic acid, benzoyl peroxide, and then the old one, sulfur. And those all have some microbial effect and anti-inflammatory effect. But there was definitely room when, when we were thinking about Strike Club and the way that we needed to kind of change the conversation for boys around self-care, because a lot of it on the shelf, you just walk through Target, and a lot of things are really kind of marketed for girls who are already more likely to take care of their skin and engage in self-care. And we kind of saw a hole there. Hey, like what are we going to buy for our teen boys that they won't be embarrassed about, that will work, that's clean, that's not overly irritating to the skin? And when my partners came to me with the idea for Strike Club, as a pediatric dermatologist and a mom of two tween boys, I kind of knew what I wanted to do with the line and how I wanted it to be formulated and how I wanted it to perform.
So before we get into what is in the line, I mean, how do you just get around changing? You mentioned that, girls, without putting too much into genders, but in general, one could argue
Yeah.
that they're more in tune with personal hygiene. Like my son will spend hours combing his hair because he has nice long hair and very long. But does he always want to put deodorant on? I'm not sure. I think so. But how do we change that behavior? Or when does it change? He's like now a freshman. I think it's changing because of girls or whatever else, typical things at that age. But how do you change? Like I guess I should rephrase it. You can have any product out there, but if the kid or boy thinks, well, this is not for me, or it's not manly, or it's okay if I sweat. How do you change that conversation? Because
I'll give you
my
an
wife and I have struggled about
uneducated.
like how to focus on and obviously it's home, but how do you focus on personal hygiene? And you have to wash your hands, you have to wash your face, whatever. And coming home after practice, you have to clean yourself up before you have dinner, that kind of stuff.
I'll answer before the expert answers. I think there was a
Okay.
stigma involved, like as a boy, being clean and looking good and stuff like that. So I think that's kind of changing now, where you know kids are more in tune to what boys are more in tune to what they look like, and they don't want to
Yeah, but I
be
feel like they always are.
the
Like
stinky,
he
pimple-headed,
cares
ugly kid.
what he wears, but he just doesn't seem to care so much. Well, it's changing now. But I would say, let's say last year, in middle school, didn't seem to care so much about personal hygiene. Like he put on these really nice clothes, but then I'm like, did you even shower after you came home from track? Like, that
That's disgusting.
there was definitely a disconnect. I know that's just maybe it's just
There is a disconnect. That's a really good way to put it. And one of the founders of Stryke Club, our company, is a mental health provider.
yeah.
And she really also recognized this idea that there was a stigma surrounding boys engaging in self-care and even in just basic hygiene. And when I thought back into my own practice and my experience, of course, I that resonated with me because it's always the girls who would be able to, go through the 3 or 4 step regimen that you would need to do to really optimize topical therapies for acne. But sometimes when my teen boy patients came back, they hadn't done the things. And so getting to the root of why that is really important. And part of it is changing the conversation about it. Traditionally, we're sort of conditioned for boys to maybe not care. Oh, it's not important. It doesn't matter. Don't care. But you know what? They do care. And we can't minimize the impact on mental health, depression, anxiety that acne has. It's been demonstrated in multiple studies that you're more likely to have anxiety and depression if you have, any inflammatory skin disease. Acne is
Right.
one of them. So how do we make it more acceptable and cool. Change the conversation. Give the boys the tools they need, but make it easy, fun, and cool. And that's really what Strike Club was kind of all about. We call the packaging locker room worthy because it's not, embarrassingly medicinal and it's not packaged for girls, but any teen can use it, honestly. It's just that really was the idea for the company is the boys.
It sounds like from a market point of view, that was the area that was obviously lacking. I mean, you said anyone could use it, but it was clearly the teenage boys. Uh, so we always like to talk about, on our show about physicians who are branching out into other areas, and obviously entrepreneurs are all the rage and all the interest, and it keeps us going. We have, I like to think we're all very smart, but why should we stop once we got board certified? I feel like our whole career, pre-med, med school, grad school, boards, especially boards. You get old enough and you become a fellow of your society, but doesn't mean you need to stop learning. So I think it's fantastic. I'd like to learn a little bit how you jumped into that arena, but I have to, as an ID doc, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask if you could just touch upon antibiotics and the use of antibiotics systemically for acne, and how long. Because I do see sometimes some of these kids coming, or hearing it from other people that they're on doxycycline or something for a very long time. So is that standardized? Is that more into kind of the art of medicine? It's not necessarily a standardization of when to give systemic antibiotics for acne and for how long.
Oh, there's definitely been a huge shift there over the
Mhm.
past 10 years. Dermatologists and, in my pediatric dermatology society, we've really moved away from repeated courses of
Yes.
prolonged systemic antibiotics for all of the reasons that you probably are very in tune with, antimicrobial resistance, gut health, microbiome, all of the things
Sure.
that I think are really important. And so optimizing topical therapy is really where we start. And in female patients, we've got a lot more opportunity to use hormonal therapies, right? We've got, oral contraceptive pills, which can really help with acne. Spironolactone can help with acne.
Hmm.
In boys, we have fewer choices, can't go the, hormonal route there, but we do use quite a bit of isotretinoin when we need to, when it's severely inflammatory, when there is scarring, when the acne is really severe or it has failed other traditional therapies. We do a lot more isotretinoin probably than we did 10 years ago
I
because we
see.
have
Yes.
shifted away from repeatedly using
Antibiotic courses.
antibiotics.
Yeah.
Yep. Mhm.
How do you balance? 'Cause I'm of the old school. Uh, Old school. I sound like an old man. Um,
You look a little bit old, man, with the lighting. You need to fix the lighting.
well, what's your dog's name again? Speaking of old men,
My dog's name is Otis.
Otis. That's an old man.
And
Anyway,
he's the light of our life, but he's not, yeah, it's like an old man name. You're right.
we were always taught that chemicals are bad for your, like, you shouldn't be putting chemicals in your face and all that. The whole natural approach, like, has that thinking changed, or is there a risk benefit analysis that you do when treating, especially something like acne?
Well, are you talking about topical medications? Do you mean being chemicals?
Yeah,
Like everything
topicals.
is
Yeah,
a chemical. So, well, I mean, there's evidence-based medicine that we do in terms of, when does someone need, say, a benzoyl peroxide versus a topical retinoid, and then there's different things. There's topical dapsone. There's different topical therapies that we use. But I think what you're maybe getting at, Clinton, is this idea of like clean beauty, natural
right,
is better. Um, and that's something that we dermatologists kind of fight against because there's all this, um, on social media, there's all this opinion about natural being better, all
right.
these plant
That's what we grew up with,
extracts,
right? Like,
botanicals, and like
Right.
including all of those things in skincare products in topical thing for topical application can be bad for your skin barrier because natural is not always better. I mean, take,
right,
poison ivy is the paramount example. I mean, that's a botanical extract. We really don't want to be including all of these highly concentrated botanicals in skincare because you will end up sensitizing yourself. You'll become allergic. You'll develop allergic contact dermatitis or irritant contact dermatitis. You'll break down your skin
So
barrier.
if you put a lot of aloe on your face, you will eventually become sensitized to that. Is that
You
what
could be. Yeah.
could
The main things are like the essential oils and
yes.
different dyes and fragrances is a huge thing.
Hmm.
Fragrance is a whole can of worms also because it's not regulated in our country. And so um, people who say they're using a fragrance don't have to disclose all of the
The
ingredients
percentage
in
of
it.
concentration and things like
Mhm.
that. Yeah.
Or even what's in it. It's a proprietary secret. And so there is currently legislation surrounding this that people are going to try to get more transparency in the entire cosmetics industry, but, especially with fragrance. But it
Yeah.
is a problem because what you're saying is right. I think what we've learned over the last 10 years is that obviously the skin is the largest organ, but these molecules, if they're small enough, will traverse the skin barrier. That's what happened in 2019 with the sunscreen issue, when two clinical trials demonstrated rapid systemic absorption after one application of 5 different chemical sunscreens that we'd been using for 2 decades. And
Sure.
that
Yeah.
made the FDA go, oh, wait, let's take another look at this. I mean, we don't know if it's good or bad that it's getting into the bloodstream, but I mean, more studies need to be done to find out
Okay.
what the ultimate effects of that are.
yeah, I think it's really important to have to transition from those misconceptions of, we were even taught, wash your face too much because that could make acne worse. But
It would
um,
disrupt my T zone. So, the time we have remaining, I'd like to now know a little bit more about Strike Club and
yeah,
how you first got into it and then kind of what the future holds. So I would always find very fascinating and inspiring for us.
and also, can I use it as a,
And also could we give
as a grown ass
really,
man?
because really
I use it every day. Well,
teenage
no,
boy at heart. That's right.
well, thank you for asking that. And I really liked what you said before about us as physicians being in academic medicine and kind of really committed, obviously, to one-on-one patient care, to research, publications, all of that. That was my whole identity. And so when my good friend Darcy Rosenblum, who's a co-founder of the company, came to me in late 2019 with the idea for Strike Club, I almost turned it down because I really had that whole like identity crisis of, well, I'm an academic doctor. How can I become an entrepreneur? And
Yeah.
like, how can I take on this new role and do all of these new things? And ultimately, because I'm a mom of teen boys, and I had some really strong ideas about how I would formulate a product for acne. Um, I decided to take the plunge, and it was kind of when the pandemic was ramping up, so I had a little bit more time and was really able to step out of my comfort zone. And that's been really nice for me because honestly, the last 4 years of doing new things has been a time of personal growth and in different ways that I didn't expect. Um,
But I think also we beat ourselves up about not, but doing stuff outside of medicine. Like it's actually a good thing. You're reaching more people about important
And
issues,
you're
right? So,
reinvigorating yourself to your calling, but
but I'm
I think
saying we're not being selfish.
yeah, but
Like
you
we're
hit the nail
yeah,
on
seeing
the head.
one patient in your office, but then you can see thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of patients by doing something, not necessarily one-on-one clinical. So I think it's a
yeah.
real good thing we beat ourselves up about being entrepreneurs. So
I
kudos to
know.
you.
Thank you very much. Reaching, hundreds or even thousands of people with something new and changing conversations for boys about acne and how they care about themselves. That would be a great legacy to leave to my
Yeah,
teen
it's
boys.
almost like a population health versus individual care. And Clinton
Right.
and I do a fair amount of media, medical reporting, and some people might say, "Oh, why are you guys doing that stuff?" But like, it is another way of just really communicating, educating, if not our own individual patients, but then just people in general about certain health topics which we think are important.
I just
So
want
I
to make sure I'm not shamed when I use Strike for myself. Is that you're not going to shame me? There's no like
and also, where's the name come
No,
from? Where does the name Strike? Am I missing?
there's no age requirement, right? Like if I put
no,
in my
we
age, it's 1978,
You
I'm
can
gonna be
take the quiz on the
flagged.
website, and you can figure it out whether you are able to take it. But what is Strike? Does it stand for something specific, or is it?
We wanted it to be a sense of belonging. And so the club kind of came
Yeah,
into that. And, you're not alone. We need to change this, for boys in general. So be
Right.
part of the club. And Strike came from, strike out acne, and it seemed to us
yeah, I like
like
that.
trend towards the masculine a little bit.
It's like the Fight Club, the
Definitely
movie Fight
does.
Club. Yeah,
Yes.
that's what I was thinking about.
So that's sort of where the name came from, and we're really proud of it. I'm just reflecting on the journey that it's been, and it took me in so many different directions. I have been a very slow adopter and reluctant user of social media,
Hmm.
but with this new entrepreneurial role I was taking
A
on,
necessary evil, right? So, or necessary
and
it's evil, but it's a necessary entity.
but also the access in pediatric dermatology is so poor. And
Hmm.
part of what I've done through the years of volunteering for my national society and for the American Academy of Pediatrics has been focused on education,
Sure.
educating patients, educating families, and educating my pediatrics peers to be able to take care of those kids with, skin disease because there are so few of us. And so on this journey, of creating and carefully curating websites on the Society for Pediatric Dermatology webpage and the AAPhealthychildren.org, what I
Hmm.
realized was that like only, two or 300 people maybe in 6 months are like looking at what you did. And
Sure.
it's,
Right.
it's great information. It's peer reviewed. It's wonderful. It's like awesome resources. And then during the pandemic, when all this was happening with Stryke Club, I was looking around at other physicians, some of them dermatologists, but a lot of other physicians kind of took to social media to use
Absolutely. We saw
a
quite a bit as
platform.
well. Yeah.
So I did it too. And I posted a couple TikToks and I was really surprised at the response, I mean, I posted a video on cradle cap of all things. And within a weekend, 2 million people have viewed it.
Whoa, you went
I was
viral.
kind of like, okay, what is this trying to tell us here? What people
But
are
telling
talking
us that certainly
about.
people digest information in different ways than perhaps even a few years ago. And
That means you need to get on
there's a
TikTok.
dramatic need for easily digestible yet accurate, medically accurate information. And during COVID-19, we saw it all the time, this pandemic and misinformation. So, I mean, speaking of social media, so where can our listeners that are interested, anyone out there, the wider community at large, find you on social media?
And how can we get your product? I'm ready.
Lynn's really
So,
pushing for
My son
example.
is ready.
so social media, I'm Dr. Sheilagh on TikTok and then dr.sheilagh.m on Instagram. In terms of Stryke Club, we're on Amazon, and that's like every mom's dream.
Cool.
Super easy, just get it in the cart. And then we have our direct to consumer site as well, which is www.strikeclub.com, and Strike is with a Y.
Any
Awesome.
plans for having the products in actual physical stores or physical areas, or that's to be
We
determined?
have been. So we have been in Target,
Oh,
still available in Target online, and we are currently,
Target for some people.
yep, and we're currently in Walmart, but we are really focusing just with the trend right now in terms of
yes.
business. We're really pushing a lot to Amazon because that's really where the convenience factor for moms who are the purchasers of the product really lies.
Oh, I got
Oh,
it.
let's not leave
And
out
you
the
get
dads.
good reviews.
Dads are interested. Oh, you see it there. That's right. Well, we hope that Clinton will hit the
I'm
submit.
gonna be fly for 2024. I can't wait.
Well, I would love your feedback. Yeah, you'll have to tell us what you thought and what your son thinks.
Well, we want to thank you
Awesome.
so much for coming on. It's very inspiring and educational for us. Clint and I are still trying to figure out what we can do. From an ID point of view, I don't know, like if I can, direct to consumer,
Do you have hair
brand,
growth
I don't know,
products
brand
for
thing
men?
maybe. I missed the boat on COVID swabs, apparently, some kind of.
That would have been a good one.
But we're still working on it. But more importantly, we wish you a lot of success and thank you so much for coming on. And we hope that all our listeners will go on to various social media handles and check your products out from Stryke Club. So thank you very much. And as far as today, it's Dr. Saggar and Dr. Clinton Coleman. As always, don't forget to rate, subscribe, and listen. Until next time, be well.